Recently, two popular actors in Nigeria, they went to the United States and then they became a soldier in the United States. And I'm wondering how come they were not interested in joining the Nigerian army? Why is it that they had to go to the United States to join the army? And then the reasons are not far-fetched. We can see the reasons. Apparently, it's because of the welfare of these people. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. Ibadan.
And I'm Unrealistic, Ido. Thank you for joining us this beautiful Monday morning.
Right. Calls for better welfare for members of the Nigerian Armed Forces are generating reactions after a former defense spokesman suggested that soldiers should earn at least 250,000 naira monthly.
The proposal has reignited conversations about the welfare of military personnel and whether improved salaries can boost morale and strengthen national security. That is our Daybreak gist this morning. And in a short while, we also bring you today's newspaper headlines featuring the stories making the biggest impact across the country.
And later on the program, our big story focuses on the politics of endorsement. Do political blessings still influence voters? As preparations for the 2027 elections continue, we examine whether endorsement from political leaders still shape voter decisions. And joining us for that discussion is Honorable Molaja Olai, APC stalwart.
Before we leave you this morning, we'll recap today's major stories and conversations.
Definitely. Welcome to Daybreak Live this morning.
A beautiful morning to you.
Yeah. To you, and Happy New Week.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why we are even starting with this kind of story on a Monday morning, but I think, it's worth it, really, because we've been on this discussion for a while now, talking about the welfare of soldiers. And then when I read through the paragraphs, I saw that initially they were paying 49,000 to these people, and then I really cannot place it, and then later it was increased to 100,000, and now a former officer, who is retired now, Mr. Eneche, is calling for an increase in that amount, and then he's calling for 250,000 naira. And then I really need to applaud him in a way, but then we just need to speak to fact and just be realistic this morning, because if you look at that 250,000 naira, it really cannot do so much, but then it's better than 100,000 naira. And then if there's one thing I know, these people, they deserve better, because they risk their lives every minute, not even every day. When they are sleeping, they are risking their lives, for every case, for every abduction, and they need to be, in that particular area, they are risking their lives. So I think they deserve better. And I remember there was a time that some officers came out, to say that they pay for their own kits, they pay for their boots, they pay for their uniforms. And I think this body, they came out to defend it, to say, they came out to debunk it, to say that's not true. These people do not pay for their uniforms, they do not pay for their boots and things like that. But then we've seen multiple officers come out to say this, that they are paying for this, they are paying for that. And there's even this popular one that they call Soldier Boy. I think recently he's moved into fashion, he now runs a fashion house, because he said he's tired of the old job. He's really not interested in, in becoming a soldier. And so we just need to talk about these issues, about their welfare. Recently, two popular actors in Nigeria, they went to the United States and then they became a soldier in the United States. And I'm wondering how come they were not interested in joining the Nigerian army? Why is it that they had to go to the United States to join the army? And then the reasons are not far-fetched. We can see the reasons. Apparently, it's because of the welfare of these people. Another case that happened recently associated with this man called Justice Crack, on social media, who was released a few weeks back, speaking about the kind of food that these soldiers eat. It's a problem, because for a man or a woman that is a soldier, any 250,000 naira cannot really do much. Now imagine what 100,000 naira is doing for these people. And I remember that, part of the reasons why military incursion happened in Nigeria, is because of external factors and internal factors, Indo and Endo factors. And then part of the external factors, we know about the whole corruption, insecurity in the society. But then the internal factors, have to do with the fact that, some junior officers accused the senior officers of having access to multiple luxuries. These people were enjoying so much. They had access to the suit, the fine uniform and things like that. And then they felt they needed to revolt. They needed to just, try to, make sure that these people are taken out of the way. And so that happened. So we had the palace school, because in military terms, we call it the palace school. So that tells us that, if that was happening back then, I'm very sure they were not earning up to 49,000 back then. But then the economic situation is not the same. But at the same time, we need to be realistic. These people cannot be earning that low. The 250,000 naira is not even enough, but at least it's better than 100,000 naira. And one thing that I think the senior officer should do is to always find a way to agitate. I mean, just speak for your people, speak for your team members. Look for ways by which you can improve the quality of their lives. Because at the end of the day, if they are okay, it means you are okay. Because they do more. Speaking about the job now, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, because these people, they'll be on the field. Yes, you give the command and things like that. You're also doing a lot, but these people deserve better. And then for every case, for every abduction case, for every kidnapping case, soldiers die, and then we give the family members money. But then it doesn't matter the amount of money we give to their family members. Can you bring them back to life? No. And that's why they deserve better in terms of welfare, in terms of their salaries, in terms of the food that they eat. Even when you are not a soldier, if you don't eat properly, it can affect your thought process. You don't really think the way you're supposed to think. So now imagine these people on the battlefield every now and then when they are not feeding properly. So I think it's something that the government should look into. And then even beyond the government now, the people at the end of affairs, they need to say more in terms of agitating for these people, really.
Yeah, I think I will call to the chase very quickly. And one thing I would like to start with is to first say that this is not bad, this is a development, like I would say. But the problem would be that if it creates a disparity between important service providers or workers in the country, that's where the problem will be. Because this will not just be a military thing, while there's every other sector unattended to. This should be a part of a broader reform. It should not just be about them, because if you say the military would require 250,000 for entry level, which is okay, right? Other parastatals departments, ministries, and even sectors of the country might want to also ask you questions about how about us. For example, the medical profession. There's going to be that everybody will now start tendering a case. They say, you know what, we're also doing equally important jobs in the country, and we ought to earn more. And that's a valid point. But I think it should be part of a broader reform. It should be something that does not create excessive disparities between the public service and servants across the country. Like the police officers, we've talked about the police officers, and oftentimes we've talked about why there's corruption in that particular sect. And it's because of how less they receive. We can trace it to many things, but majorly, if you earn well, you will be so confident to speak to an average Nigerian without fear, without intimidation. You know that your problems financially are solved, and so you don't have to oppress somebody, you don't have to extort somebody, you don't have to collect the 20 nairas, the 15 nairas, and the 100 nairas, and now 200 naira maybe. You don't have to stay by the road and collect money. You speak to them like an average citizen, and you guys exchange contacts if so be. And then whatever the case is, it's going to be a normal situation, not the case of what do you have for the boys or Gafa. Your boys don't do inside son. That's not necessary. And we understand why these things are, right? So if we increase their payment schedule, for example, I think it's going to help a lot. But now, let's take it back, maybe just to get a few of the examples that we might get from across the continent. And I don't want to take it away from, like you mentioned, the U.S. Part of what the U.S. Military does is that besides the money that they give you, which is quite a lot of money, there are also some added benefits supplemented by housing, healthcare, education, pensions, and hardship allowances, making the total compensation significantly higher than basic salary alone. So what you get as a U.S. military person in terms of like your salary, your take home, is not even as much as what you get in terms of the benefit attached to it, like your housing and all of the ones that reuse out this money. But again, I think it's going to be a wonderful thing if we look at the reform. One, the reason is we have a security situation at hand that requires help. And two, besides the security situation, we need to encourage more police officers, more security agencies and members to really start and do their work. We need to even, this will encourage them to want to work, want to come into the security apparatus to say, I want to do my bit for the country, because you know that whatever you're doing, you're still getting something, maybe not commensurate with your effort, but something quite tangible that you can take home to your family. Some would say an average take home of a soldier cannot even take him home. It's a conversation, and it's so true that they don't earn that much. If it's 49,000 naira for an entry-level military man, and then later to 100,000 naira. That's an improvement, but we think it should be a continuous one in the sense of the current situation in the country, the hardship, the economic situation in the country requires that there be a look into over this situation. So that's one of the points I'm making. But if you look at other countries across Africa, South Africa, for example, earns nothing less than 700,000 naira, equivalent to Nigerian naira. And if you have to look at it, so why is that disparity that large? It's just simple. It's simple because if we are really serious about security in the country, if we are really serious about upgrading the lives and the standard of living of these people who are in the public service, then we need to pay them more. Anybody that gets more should be able to, so you'll be able to even tell them that to whom much is given, then much is expected. So you'll be able to say, you're supposed to man this post, you're not supposed to ask people for money. So everybody knows what they should do and what they shouldn't do. So I'm cutting to just to say, it's a wonderful development, but it should not just be about the military. It should be about every important public servant, public sector, and I think that's one of the moves that can help the country move forward.
Yeah, I think you have a very good point. And then just to conclude on this matter, I believe that if there can be improvement in their welfare, it's going to help us reduce insecurity. Because these people, if they're okay. Now, let me talk about other countries, for instance. Now, talk about countries like maybe South Korea, maybe United States, maybe the UK. When you listen, we watch movies, and we want to believe that some of those movies, are reflections of the realities in this country. These people are very passionate about their country. Why? Because if you look at their welfare, they have all that they need. So, except for those officers who are very greedy, and that's about that, because those ones want to settle for one or two bribe and then try to just do something that can affect their country. But these people have all that they need. So when you have all that you need, you are really not bothered. Especially when you remember, the kind of vows that you made when you wanted to become maybe a military person or a police officer. So I want to believe that improving the quality of life of these people will solve a lot of problems that we are actually dealing with, carrying guns. Because at the end of the day, there are certain things that we need to put in place that we don't even need guns. We don't even need to buy drones for those things. So if we can ensure that these people are okay, like I mentioned, part of the internal factors that led to the polar squeeze, because these people felt their orgas were enjoying more and they were living a good life, while the junior ones, we're not living a very good life like that. So if you can improve the welfare of these people, of course, the guys will enjoy more. But let the junior officers also have a good life. And then with that, we can see improvement without even stressing ourselves, really. And I think it's a fine place to leave that discussion this morning. We take a short break, and when we come back, we move on to newspaper headlines and analysis. We'll be right back.